The battle above Cryon 4 lit the void like a storm of fire. Beams cut across black space, slicing through cruisers and shredding shields. Explosions bloomed like dying suns, scattering broken hulls into the cold dark. The Vraxis Dominion and the Thin Thal-Kor Union had been at war for 20 years. Entire sectors burned under their conflict. Today, both fleets fought for control of the Kargas hyperlane, the lifeline of trade and power. Whoever won this battle would own half the galaxy. And yet the battlefield hung above a dead rock. Cryon 4, a ruined world. Once a jewel during the first Galactic War 10,000 years ago. Now, nothing but stone, dust, and broken cities buried under mountains of ash. The admirals ignored it. To them, the planet was worthless, a graveyard, a relic no one cared for. But the soldiers whispered, they always whispered. "Don't land there," muttered a Thal-Kor Marine, his voice hushed even inside the dropship. "Why?" his comrade asked. The Marine swallowed. "They say Cryon 4 still remembers." It was an old myth, a story told in barracks across 100 fleets. They said ghosts walked on that world, that the ground moved when no one watched, that machines older than stars still slept under its crust. The officers laughed at such talk. The Council of War dismissed it as nonsense, just ruins and dust. They said, but myths have roots, and roots run deep. Above the planet, chaos reigned. The Dominion flagship Bloodspire fired a volley of plasma torpedoes, burning through a Union carrier. Fighters danced like angry insects, tearing each other apart. And then, out of the darkness, came a shape no one expected. A frigate, old, battered, its hull scarred by time. Its engines flared weakly as it limped into the battle. But it wasn't Dominion. It wasn't Union. It was human. For a moment, the war paused. Every Kung channel filled with static and questions. Identify that ship. Impossible. Humans vanished centuries ago. Scan confirms Terran signature. Name reads UNC Vigilant Dawn. A human mercenary frigate thought extinct had entered the fight. It bore old colors, the United Nations Space Command emblem faded, but still proud. Humans? Admiral Core of the Dominion spat in disbelief. "I thought their species died out after the last Exodus War." "So did we," whispered the Thal-Kor Admiral on the other side. The Vigilant Dawn did not answer hails. It drifted, like a ghost through wreckage, avoiding fire. Its shields flickered. Its weapons stayed cold, yet its presence sent a ripple of fear through both sides. Because if one human ship had survived, how many more? And why here above Cryon 4? The battle resumed with renewed fury, but unease crept into every heart. The dead planet loomed below, silent and dark, as if watching. Then came the first warning. "Command, this is Ground Team Alpha. We've landed near Grid 7. The ruins are strange, reading faint power under the crust. Probably old reactors. Ignore it," came the curt reply. "Negative, sir. This is active power. Massive." The transmission cut with a burst of static. A second team reported tremors, then a third. Scouts began detecting anomalies, movement deep beneath the planet's surface. Something large, something alive, or close enough to it. "Command. Seismic readings spiking." "This isn't natural," another voice interrupted, ragged with fear. "It's moving. Gods help us. It's moving." Above, the admirals dismissed the warnings as battlefield confusion. But the humans aboard Vigilant. Dawn said nothing. They only stared at Cryon 4, silent, as if waiting for something they already knew would come. On the planet, in the shadow of a shattered city, a lone soldier crouched behind a cracked pillar. His armor was broken. His weapon was empty. Dust rained as the ground split under his feet. He raised his helmet cam, breathing hard, and spoke his last words into the void. It's not a myth. The earth exploded behind him in a storm of fire and stone. Mountains cracked. The ruins fell. And something vast, something older than the war, older than the empires themselves, rose from the depths. Its shape blotted out the sky. Metal, black as the void, marked with scars that told stories older than stars. The soldier's voice broke as the screen filled with a glowing blue eye the size of a tower. It's waking up. The feed cut to black dot. The galaxy had forgotten. Cryin' but Cryin' had not forgotten the galaxy dot. The first tremor rippled through the planet's crust like the heartbeat of a buried giant. Dust storms rose in silence, sweeping across broken cities and shattered spires that had slept for 10,000 years. Then came another tremor. Stronger dot above the planet. Fleets fought on. The Dominion and Thal Corps admirals ignored ground reports, focusing on orbital supremacy. Plasma cannons burned across the void, carving through destroyers. Hulls split. Fires bloomed like suns. But every captain, every soldier, felt it, the unease creeping into their bones. Because something was moving beneath them. The first sight, "Command, this is Ground Team Gamma. We've got." Gods, I don't even know what we've got. The voice cracked across open channels, drowning under static and fear. Screens flickered as images came through. A sea of broken stone splitting apart, dust boiling into the air, lightning crackling from deep fissures. Then a shadow rose from the earth dot at first. It looked like a mountain lifting itself from the crust. Black metal glistened under the pale light of Cryin' 4's dying sun. Pieces of ruins slid off its surface like sand, as if the world itself was being reborn into steel. The cameras zoomed, and every admiral froze, because on the metal, there were markings, old, faded, but still readable. Letters etched in languages most had forgotten, but the archives remembered well. UNSC, the symbol of Earth, the machine wakes it, stood taller than any building, its limbs buried in stone, snapping free with thunderous cracks. Its black armor shimmered, with rivers of blue light, pulsing like veins under living skin. Its head turned slowly, an eye blazing like a star, cutting through the dust. The machine opened its arms. The ground shattered. Energy readings spiked so high sensors burned out across half the battlefield. What? What is that? A Thal Corps officer screamed. Impossible, hissed Admiral Corps of the Dominion. Humans never built machines like this, not even at their peak. The comms erupted with voices, fear dripping from every word. It's a Titan. Those are just myths. Negative, sir. It's real, oh stars. There's more movement. Because the first machine wasn't alone. More are waking the crust, split in jagged lines stretching for miles. Mountains cracked like eggshells. Entire valleys sank into darkness, as enormous shapes tore themselves free from the planet's bones. 1, 2, 3, 4. A Titan machine so vast they dwarfed battleships, their hulls covered in Terran insignia and battle scars older than every empire now watching. Their voices came like thunder rolling through space, a sound no one could explain, as if the world itself groaned when they moved. The fleets above went silent, weapons dimmed. Even war paused and then the human spoke. The human ship, the mercenary. Frigate Vigilant Dawn drifted closer to the planet, engines humming with controlled calm. On its bridge stood Captain Rhea Vance, the first human many had seen in centuries. Her face was pale under the glow of tactical screens, her jaw set like stone. She watched the Titans rise and whispered one word under her breath. Home. Alien voice broke through the channel. Human ship. Explain this. What are those things? Vance didn't look up. Her hands danced over the console, locking the ship into a high orbit, eyes fixed on the waking giants below. They weren't meant to wake, she said coldly. You're not answering the question, roared the Dominion Admiral. Vance turned her gaze toward the holoscreen, her voice calm and sharp as a blade. They're not here because of us, she said. They're waking because of you. The line went dead. The march begins, the Titans began to move. Each step sent shockwaves through the planet, splitting fault lines wider, shaking entire continents. Ancient dust fell like rain as they climbed from their graves. They ignored the fleets. They ignored the screaming soldiers on the surface. They had a purpose. They were walking towards something deeper, something still hidden under the crust. The Dominion Admiral snarled. Fire on them. Now! A rain of plasma bolts and antimatter shells fell on the first Titan. Explosions bloomed, like suns against its black armor. Dust and fire swallowed the horizon dot, and when the smoke cleared, the Titan stood unharmed. Not a scratch. Its glowing eye turned upward, toward the ships in orbit. Then it raised its arm. The first. Strike the weapon unfolded from its arm like a blooming flower of death. No one knew what it was until it fired. A beam of white light tore through the void, bending space like glass, punching a hole straight through a Dominion battleship. The ship vanished in silence, atomized in an instant, erased as if it had never existed. Every fleet froze. Then the panic began. They're killing everything. Pull back. Pull back. It's a weapon from hell. But the Titans didn't. Keep firing. They didn't care about the fleets. After destroying the first ship, they turned away, their giant heads lowering back toward the planet, as if the attack was nothing but a warning. A message burned across every sensor, a signal older than time, in a language that still made every translator scream one word. Access denied. The core pulse on the surface. The ground split in a circle miles wide. A blinding blue light erupted from the abyss, stabbing into the sky like a spear. Energy readings spiked beyond measurable limits, power enough to shatter stars. What is that? Whispered a Thalcor officer, his voice breaking. Captain Vance stared at the light, her eyes dark with something between awe and fear. The core burned like a newborn star. Its light spread across the broken sky, and every shadow trembled. Above Cryon 4, the battlefield was no longer a graveyard of fleets. It was a storm of gods. The Titans stood around the core, their bodies glowing with rivers of blue fire. They were weapons older than memory, forged by human hands in the darkest age of war. And now they walked again. The gate opens wide, the stellar gate at the planet's heart, stretched into the heavens like a wound. In reality, its spinning frame roared with collapsing stars, pulling energy from the abyss. Through it came the swarm, not ships, not armies. A living tide. Their forms defied reason, black coils twisting through space, bodies that melted into shadow and flame, eyes like burning holes in the sky. Some were the size of frigates, others the size of moons. Every Dominion and Thalcor ship that still floated tried to escape, engines screaming, but the gravity field of the core held them like flies in amber. They could run nowhere. And then the swarm screamed. The sound of hunger. It wasn't sound, it was thought. A wave of hunger that crawled into every mind, every nerve. Consume, consume. All suns, all life. Dominion warriors clawed at their helmets. Thalcor soldiers tore their own throats to silence the whisper. Crews begged for death. Inside Vigilant Dawn, now reborn as a Titan, the crew shook as voices filled their skulls. But at the center of it all, Captain Rhea Vance stood still, her eyes cold and bright. Ignore it, she said softly. It can't eat what we don't give. Her crew stared at her as if she had lost her mind, but they obeyed. They had no choice. First Clash the Swarm moved first. Tendrils of black fire lashed out from the gate, wrapping around the broken hull of a Dominion dreadnought. The ship screamed as metal melted, crew bursting into vapor. Then the swarm drank the wreck like water, but another tendril struck a Thalcor carrier, slicing it in half without effort. Escape pods burned before they launched. "They're feeding," whispered the first officer. "They're eating reality." Then the Titans struck. One raised its arm, and a blade of blue energy unfolded from its wrist longer than a city. With a single sweep, it cut through a swarm tendril, severing the black coil in a flash of light. The void howled. The war began. The Titans roar. They moved like living mountains, each step bending the sky. Weapons bloomed from their bodies, cannons that spat stars, hammers that shattered gravity, beams that tore holes through existence. One Titan fired a railgun the size of a fortress. The shot ripped through two swarm beasts, leaving holes that bled. Shadow. Another Titan leapt into the void, slamming into a creature as large as a moon. Their impact cracked the sky in thunder, shock waves ripping broken ships apart. The swarm answered with storms of darkness, tendrils striking like lightning, cutting through Titans, dragging them into the gate. One Titan fell, its body torn in, half glowing veins spilling fire. But even dying, it fought. Its core detonated in a blast brighter than dawn, erasing 100 swarm forms before fading into silence. Inside the Titan on the bridge of Vigilant Dawn, alarm screamed. The crew clung to their stations as the Titan's new body moved with impossible speed. "Weapons online," the systems officer cried. "Fire," Vance said. The Titan's chest split open, revealing a cannon pulsing with the power of suns. The shot fired a beam of blue fire that tore across the gate, slicing through 3 swarm beasts like paper. The shock wave cracked asteroids to dust. The crew stared in awe. "Captain, this ship, it's alive." Vance's lips curled in a cold smile. It always was. The enemy adapts. For every swarm creature that fell, 3 more came through. The gate, they were learning, changing. Their shapes shifted, growing harder, faster, sharper. Some began reflecting Titan fire. Others split into clouds of shards that devoured everything they touched. A Dominion battlecruiser screamed over. Becomes as black shards drilled through its hull, eating metal and flesh alike. The ship detonated in silence. "We can't hold them," the first officer gasped. Vance didn't blink. "Then we make them bleed harder." The Dominion plie broken signal cut through the chaos. A Dominion admiral, blood on his face, screaming. Into the void. "Human, call them off. We surrender." "By every law of war we yield." Vance stared at the screen. Her eyes were stone. "This isn't war," she said. "This is survival." Then she cut the channel. "The Titans unite." The core's voice shook the void again. "Directive confirmed. Greater than Phase 2. Full engagement." The Titans answered with a roar that made the stars tremble. They charged as one. A wall of gods wrapped in fire. Blades rose, cannons flared, and the sky burned blue. Vigilant Dawn led the charge, its weapons singing like thunder, carving swarm shapes apart with every shot. Vance gripped the rail, her face lit by fire and death, for a heartbeat. It looked like they could win. Then the gate pulsed, and something came through. The Colossus, it was bigger than moons, bigger than planets. A shape of pure black, dripping shadow like oceans, its body twisting into infinity. Its eyes burned with suns gone mad. The swarm Colossus opened its mouth, and the void collapsed. Space folded inward, dragging wrecks and ships and Titans toward the Black Maw. A Dominion fleet vanished screaming. 2 Titans fell into the vortex, their bodies torn apart before they could fire. Vance's ship tilted, alarms howling as the pull grew stronger. "Engines at full," the officer yelled. It's not enough. Another cried. Vance's eyes burned like steel. Then we make it enough. The last hope she opened a channel to the core, her voice steady as mountains. Command override Vigilant Dawn to Titan Protocol. Give me the ignition codes. The core's voice shook her bones. Warning. Ignition will result in catastrophic system loss. Greater than do it. The Titan obeyed. Energy built in its core, brighter than 1,000 suns, until the ship itself screamed. Captain, her officer whispered, what are you doing? Vance's voice was a whisper of iron. Ending this. Cliffhanger, the Titan surged forward, straight toward the Colossus. Weapons blazed, tearing into black flesh that healed faster than light. The vortex pulled harder, dragging everything toward the monster's maw. Vance stood at the heart of the storm, fire in her eyes, her last words echoing like thunder. For Earth, for all of us. Then the Titan ignited. A blast brighter than creation tore the void apart. The gate shattered. The Colossus screamed. And then dashed darkness. The silence of peace. The silence of death. Where a planet once burned with blue fire, there was now only a wound in space, a scar of shattered rock, drifting in glowing dust. Krine 4 was gone, torn apart by forces no galaxy had words for. The stellar gate was gone too, ripped to pieces by the blast that swallowed half the system. Stars nearby flickered like candles in a storm. But the war wasn't over. The void, after the storm, fragments of Dominion and Thalkor ships floated like bones. Lifeboats spun dead. Voices that once filled the comms had fallen silent. And yet something moved in the dark. A shadow glided through the wreckage, silent as death. Its hull shimmered with energy like liquid fire. It wasn't a ship anymore. It wasn't a Titan. It was something beyond both. It was the Vigilant Dawn reborn in the blast. Reshaped by power, no one should wield. Inside the beast, Captain Rhea Vance opened her eyes. Her bridge was gone. Her crew was gone. She stood in a chamber of living metal, blue veins glowing beneath her feet like rivers of light. She wasn't wearing her uniform. She wasn't even breathing air. Her body was wrapped in strands of silver that pulsed with energy. She felt the Titan's heartbeat inside her skull. She wasn't piloting it anymore. She was it. The core's voice spoke not from speakers, but from inside her mind. Ignition complete. Colossus neutralized. 92%. Greater than residual swarm activity detected. Greater than integration. Irreversible. Greater than. Vance closed her eyes. Irreversible. She wasn't human anymore. The wrecked galaxy across the system. Survivors crawled from the fire. Dominion warships limped through broken space. Thalkor carriers spun with shredded hulls. Entire fleets had been erased like dust in the wind. Of the thousands of ships that came to Krine 4, fewer than 100 remained, and even those were dying. Panic rippled across the galaxy as news broke. The council chambers shook with fear and rage. Every channel burned with the same question. What have the humans done? The swarm is not gone. The blast should have ended it. It didn single quotes T. In the darkness. Where the gate once spun, something stirred. Black fragments drifted together, fusing, growing. The Colossus wasn't dead. It was evolving. Its broken form pulsed with crimson light, healing faster than stars could. Burn. Around it, smaller swarm shapes gathered, devouring wreckage, feasting on dead worlds nearby, growing stronger. The war wasn't over. It had just begun. A message inside her living Titan body. Vance heard the whispers, not swarm voices. Human voices. Rhea Vance. If you hear this, the final protocol has begun. Earth is gone. The core will guide you. The galaxy cannot face the swarm, but you can. Greater than, you are humanity's last weapon. Her heart turned to ice. Earth? Gone? She tried to speak, but no sound came. Only thought and the Titan answered. We are one now. We will finish what they began. The survivors fearing the edge of the system, a Dominion battleship picked up movement. Its sensors trembled as the shape glided from the ruins. A silhouette, larger than anything left alive. Dot, it wasn't a swarm. Beast. It wasn't a Titan, they remembered, Dot. It was something else. Something worse. Dot, the commander's hands shook. What is that? No one answered. Because every soul on that bridge already knew. The last human ship had become a god. The blue beam split the sky above Cryon 4, piercing the clouds like a blade of light. The energy storm twisted gravity so violently that broken mountains floated like shattered moons. Dust swirled upward instead of falling. The air screamed as reality bent under the impossible. From orbit, the Dominion and Thal Corps admirals watched in horror. Entire fleets broke formation as ships scrambled for distance. But the planet pulled them back with invisible chains. Their drives sputtered. Junk coordinates collapsed. No escape. The Corps had woken Dot, and the Titans were marching toward it. The debate admiral, Corps of the Dominion, slammed his clawed hand on the console, snarling at his officers. What in the void is that thing? Energy readings? Unknown. Sir, an officer stammered. Off the charts. It's rewriting every known law of physics. Then write new laws, Corps roared. Fire on IT. But deep down, he knew it wouldn't matter. They had thrown everything at the Titans and done nothing but scratch the dust. Across the void, the Thal Corps flagship shook under a gravity surge. Admiral Vesran gripped the rail, his silver eyes locked on the blinding light. Send word. To the Council, he said quietly. What do we tell them? His aide asked. Tell them, Vesran whispered, the old stories were true. The human ship speaks on the bridge of Vigilant Dawn. Captain Rhea Vance stood calm, her hands behind her back, as if she had been waiting for this moment her whole life. The Dominion hailed her again, desperation bleeding through their arrogance. Human ship, explain this madness. What is the Corps? What are these machines? Vance turned slowly to face the holoscreen. Her expression was like iron, her voice cold. You really don't know, she said softly. You really forgot. Forgot what? The First War, she said. The one you don't write about in your history books. Her eyes darkened. The war you think you won. The forgotten war the galaxy had not seen humans for centuries. The last records of their species ended after the Exodus War, when Earth burned and Terran fleets vanished into the void. The archives claimed they had destroyed themselves, too stubborn to bend to the Council's rule. But the archives lied. 10,000 years ago, during the First Galactic War, humanity faced something no one else would fight. Something the galaxy still pretends never existed. They called it the Abyssal Swarm, a force that came from outside the stars. Not ships. Not life as anyone knew it. Things without form, without reason, devouring suns, breaking physics like glass. The Council tried to negotiate with them. They failed. Entire species died screaming Dot, so humanity made a choice. They built Titans, not ships, not soldiers, weapons that could think, that could wait, that could wake when the galaxy was dying. Captain. Vance's voice was cold as ice as she spoke over open channels, every admiral listening in silence. The Titans were never myths. They were a promise. If humanity fell, they would sleep. If the enemy came again, they would rise. Dominion Admiral Corps spat in rage. What enemy? There is no enemy but us. Vance's smile was sharp as a blade. Then why do you think the Corps just opened a door? The Corps awakens on Cryon 4, the ground split wider. The blue light became a storm of fire. Inside the abyss, something stirred, vast shapes shifting, their outlines impossible to comprehend. Energy rippled out in pulses that made every ship's system scream warnings. The Titans gathered at the edge of the abyss like priests at an altar. They weren't attacking. They weren't defending. They were waiting. Then the planet spoke. Not with sound. With thought, confirming extinction event, greater than Protocol Titan, engaged. Accessing stellar gateways. Every mind heard it. Every translator translated it. And every soul froze. Panic in the void, the Dominion fleets fired everything they had: superheated plasma, antimatter torpedoes, gravitic warheads. The sky became a storm of fire. The core swallowed it all. The weapons vanished mid-flight, disassembled into particles. The core bent space and ate the laws of war for breakfast. Admiral Vesren gripped the rail, his voice breaking for the first time in his long life. "Pull us back. Pull everyone back. Sir, the gravity field, it's holding us." Then, burn the drives until they melt. But it was no use. The core had them all. The signal on Vigilant Dawn. Alarm screamed, lights flickered, but Captain Vance stood calm. A voice spoke in her ear, a voice she had not heard since her ancestors swore. The oath, Terran's signature confirmed. UNSC vessel, Vigilant Dawn. Authorization? Vance swallowed hard. Her throat was dry as stone. "Rhea Vance," she whispered. "Bloodline code, Delta 5 Titan." The voice pulsed through her skull like thunder. Authorization accepted. Directive: prepare for convergence. The screens on her bridge bloomed with light. The Titans froze mid-step. Then they turned their blazing eyes upward toward her. Her crew stared in terror. "Captain, what's happening?" Vance closed her eyes, her voice a whisper. "They're asking if we're ready." The truth hit Severy. Fleet heard the next message. Non-human signatures detected. Greater than G. Hostile origin confirmed. Greater than extinction authorized. The core sent pulses into space. Across the battlefield, alien ships shook as systems fried. Hull plating cracked under invisible force. Dominion cruisers imploded like tin under a hammer. Thal core carriers tore apart without a shot fired. In minutes, hundreds of ships died. Not because of weapons. Because the core decided they didn't deserve to live. "Stop it," Core screamed over open comms. "Human, call them off." Vance stared at the light of the core, her face pale, her voice hollow. "I can't," she whispered. "Why not?" "Because it's not listening to me anymore." The final shot, the core roared like a star giving birth. A wave of blue fire expanded across space, washing over everything. Dominion dreadnoughts crumbled into ash. Union fleets shattered. Only the Vigilant Dawn stood untouched, haloed in light. The voice came again, cold and infinite. Phase 1 complete, greater than Phase 2. External threat neutralization. Greater than. Vance turned to her crew, her eyes empty. "External threat?" one officer whispered. "What does that mean?" Vance stared into the abyss, where shapes were moving, shapes too big, too wrong to belong to any galaxy. "It means," she said softly, "the enemy's already here." The feed from the abyss pulsed one last time before everything went dark. Gate opening, greater than stand by, and the stars screamed. The sky above crying for burned blue, not with fire. With power. The core's light twisted space like a living thing. Ships groaned under invisible pressure as gravity bent in wild patterns. Destroyed hulls floated like broken bones around the planet. The war that had raged for decades was over, not because one side won, but because both sides were nothing. Now, the Dominion and Thal core fleets were shattered, reduced to drifting wreckage and screams on the comms. A few ships still fought, but their weapons meant nothing. Plasma cannons, Antimatter bombs, gravitic warheads all dissolved in blue fire before they touched the ground. And still, the Titans walked. The march, they were beyond size, beyond sense machines, older than empires, black as the void and burning with rivers of light. Their footsteps tore the planet apart. Each stride sent mountains crashing into oceans of molten stone. Dust storms rose like walls of darkness, hiding their colossal forms until they stepped through like gods. Breaking through smoke, they moved toward the core with one purpose, and nothing stopped them. A Dominion gunship, desperate and blind with fear, made a suicide run. It slammed every engine to full thrust and dove into a Titan's chest. Antimatter payload armed, the explosion was brighter than dawn. When the light cleared, the Titan was still standing, unharmed. It didn't even look up. On the bridge on Vigilant Dawn, alarm screamed. Metal groaned under the stress of bending space, but the ship held. It was the only vessel the Titans didn't touch. They ignored the humans completely, almost reverently. Captain Rhea Vance gripped the command rail as her crew stared in shock. "Captain," her first officer whispered, "why aren't they killing us?" Vance's voice was low, sharp with truth she had hoped never to speak. "Because we made them." The words silenced the bridge. Every officer turned to her, faces pale with terror and awe. "Made them?" "Project Titan," Vance said softly, "Earth's last defense. They weren't just weapons, they were guardians. They were never meant to wake unless—" She stopped. No one asked. They didn't need to, unless the war came back. Unless the enemy returned. The Council's desperation far above. In the safety of their citadels orbiting distant suns, the Galactic Council watched the live feeds in stunned silence. The chamber echoed with shouts, voices breaking through layers of protocol and centuries of arrogance. Send reinforcements. From where? Nothing survives that. We must speak to the humans. The humans? They brought this curse upon us. Or saved us from something worse, whispered one elder. His skin pale as stone. The feed crackled as another ship screamed, its last message before vanishing into blue fire. The room fell silent when they heard the core speak again, its voice booming across every channel in tones that made stars seem small. Phase 1, local purge complete. Phase 2, preparing stellar gate. No one in the chamber breathed. The stellar gate, the ground around the core, shattered like glass, sinking into an endless pit of light. From that abyss rose a structure so massive it defied comprehension, an orbital ring growing upward from the planet, forging itself out of raw energy and broken stone. Pieces of the dead planet floated up, locking into place like puzzle shards. Within minutes, a ring of blinding metal circled the core.